Hi everybody, I'm Rick Beato. In this episode of Everything Music, I'm going to talk about terms to know for the contemporary musician. These are all terms that are ways to analyze music of the 21st and 20th century. Some of these are more advanced concepts to understand, but I'm going to explain them to you coming up next. So let's start with the beginning, which is diatonic, the term diatonic. You hear me say this all the time. Diatonic is music that uses the notes of one key with no chromatic alterations. The key of C, the key of G, the key of E flat. You hear the term all the time, and that's what it means. Like a C major scale, just C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. That's the diatonic scale. Okay, the first scale that we're going to go over is the diatonic scale. In this instance, it will be C major. Diatonic means that it is all notes within the key without any chromatic notes. So this will be all the white keys starting in C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then back to the tonic. Dodecaphonic is another word for 12-tone music or serial music. Sometimes it's called 12-tone serial music. I will do a whole video on this. I'll probably do multiple videos on this. Serial music came to the forefront in the early 20th century. Arnold Schoenberg was one of the pioneers of it. There's the second Viennese school that they called it. That was Schoenberg, Webern, and Berg. Alban Berg, Anton Webern, and Arnold Schoenberg. So serial music is where all 12 notes of the chromatic scale are given equal importance, preventing the emphasis on any one tone or key. There are 4 types of tone rows used in serial music. The first is the prime form. It's your 12-tone row is what it's called. Then there's the retrograde, which is simply the same row backwards, the same note order but backwards. Then you have the inversion. The inversion is the prime row, but when I say inverted, it means if the first note, if you're going from C up to E flat, you invert the interval. So that would be a minor third up. Well, you go a minor third down. So you go from C to A. And the fourth is the retrograde inversion. And it's just what it implies. It's the road backwards with all the intervals mirrored, meaning going in the opposite way. If you go up perfect fifth up, on the original one, you go perfect fifth down on this one. So these are the ways that you do not repeat notes. You'll have notes played as chords that will have the tone row will be, a piece of the tone row will be comprised in that chord. The second scale we're going to talk about is the dodecaphonic scale, or the 12-tone or chromatic scale. We will start on C. It goes like this. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and then back to C. The next term is pentatonic. You're probably all familiar with that. Pentatonic is a 5-note scale with no half steps. If you think of a minor pentatonic scale, an A minor pentatonic scale, A, C, D, E, G. There's no half steps in there. It's 5 notes of, in that case, would be of an A natural minor scale. Or you can have the C major pentatonic, which would be C, D, E, G, A. Once again, no half steps. It's the 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 of a C major scale. The third scale is the pentatonic scale. In this case, we're going to use C major pentatonic, and it's the notes C, D, E, G, A. And the last one on here is the hexatonic. The term hexatonic refers to a 6-note scale that alternates semitones and minor thirds. The augmented scale is a hexatonic scale. That would be C, D sharp, E, G, G sharp, B. Okay, so 1, sharp 2, 3, 5, sharp 5, major 7. I did a whole video on the augmented scale that you should check out. The fourth scale discussed is the hexatonic scale. A hexatonic scale can be any 6-note scale, but in this case, it's the augmented scale, and it's comprised of the notes C, D sharp, E, G, A flat, and B. Our next set of terms, we begin with octatonic, or the octatonic scale. That is an 8-note scale that alternates between semitones or half steps and whole tones, which are whole steps, which would be the tonic or dominant diminished scale. The tonic diminished scale begins with a whole step. It's whole step, half step, whole step, half step. And the dominant diminished scale begins with a half step. So half step, whole step, half step, whole step, etc. The fifth scale is the octatonic scale. It's also known as the tonic or dominant diminished, depending on whether it starts with a half step or whole step. This will be the dominant diminished, beginning with a half step. C, D flat, E flat, E, F sharp, G, A, B flat, back to C. The next term, tetrachord. You hear this very commonly in music theory. A tetrachord is any 4-note segment of a scale or tone row. A good example of a tetrachord would be the beginning of a C major scale. C, D, E, F would be a tetrachord. A tetrachord is the first 4 notes of a scale. In this case, C major. C, D, E, F. The next term is an excel. Excel is a term that was used back in the mid-20th century when atonality started to become in vogue in the early 1900s, and it was a way to do analysis of things like clusters. So an excel is a chromatic tetrachord, right? 4-note scale. In this case, for example, C, D flat, D, E flat, or a cluster. The cue that I did an analysis of in my Bernard Herrmann video of the murder scene from Psycho uses a chromatic tetrachord, a cluster, and this excel is between the notes E flat and G flat. So it'd be E flat, E, F, G flat. That's that 4-note chromatic tetrachord that's used in that opening of that murder scene cue. The next example is called an X cell. This cell is comprised of 4 chromatic notes. In this instance, it is the notes C, D flat, D, and E flat. The murder scene in Psycho uses this particular X cell with the notes E flat, E, F, and G flat. They are spaced out beyond a couple octaves, but this is the X cell or pitch set that he uses for that cue. The X cell that was used began on the note E flat and included those 4 notes: E flat, E, F, F sharp. A Y cell is a whole tone tetrachord. So it's the first 4 notes of a whole tone scale. There's all whole steps between them. C, D, E, F sharp. Those are all whole steps in between them. The Y cell is a series of 4 whole steps. In this case, C, D, E, F sharp. A Z cell is a 4-pitch collection that alternates between semitones and perfect fourths. For example, C, D flat, then up a perfect fourth, G flat, G. 2 Z cells, a minor third apart, form an octatonic scale or diminished scale. And the Z cell is a semitone, perfect fourth, semitone. In this case, it would be C, D flat, G flat, G. That's all for now. Please subscribe here to my Everything Music YouTube channel. Also, if you're interested in the Beato book, you can write me at rickbeato1@gmail.com for information on that. Tell your friends about it. I'm Rick Beato. We'll see you soon.